spent the day getting to know our next speaker, and the list of service that he's done for his community and his country. Looking at this, I'd asked him, what does he want me to highlight? And the thing that he said most is he wanted to highlight you and what you're doing for the Republican Party, what you're doing for your community to save this country. And this is a man that served in Vietnam. He's currently serving in Congress. So I want to welcome Congressman James Baird up to have a discussion about what's happening at the national level and just how crazy AOC is. So for those that don't know, I've been told many times they like the fireside chat Bush dinners more than the speaking. So we've decided to keep this in that theme. It seems a little bit more interesting. So the first question I have, Congressman, in spending the day with you, it truly has been an honor. And I was wondering, what was one of your biggest challenges coming back from Vietnam and serving the military and coming back stateside?
You know, that was, am I mic'd? I guess, can you hear me all right? Can you come through? That decision was made on the hospital ship in Vietnam. I was on the hospital ship USS Sanctuary. And I decided I had two choices. And that was to lay down and quit or to get up and go again. Interestingly, my wife, Denise, hold up your hand, Denise. Actually, stand up. They need to know these. Anyway, was on the hospital ship. I can't remember whether I kept the arm for a little bit anyway. The Red Cross lady that brought me the phone and said, "You must have some really important people back at home in Indiana." And of course I knew who that very important person was, and that was my wife, Denise. And she's a registered nurse, but she managed to get a hold through the Navy and through some ham operators, get a hold of me, and she said two things. She said, "I love you and I want you to come home." And that had a real impact on me because I felt I owed her at least the responsibility to come home. I said, "I love you and I'm coming home." And so that's where that decision was made, and I have never regretted it, except that I will tell you this: her bedside manner over the years has deteriorated, in my opinion, because at that time she really took care of me, and now the grandkids get all of that kind of attention. And even the Pyrenees dogs that we have at home kind of get that attention. And so I'm a little
I think
jealous,
you're going to be in trouble.
But nevertheless, I'm trying to demonstrate to you that we had a choice at that time whether we were going to quit or whether we were going to go ahead. And that's a little bit the way I feel about what we're doing now in Congress. I am sure everyone in this room is much more talented than I am. But I can tell you this. I don't know that there's everyone in this room has any more grit than my wife and I, and we intend to preserve those freedoms that we enjoy and that all of those service people have given for this country to this point. Thank you. And I think we all have a responsibility, and just as J.R. mentioned, I really do. I meant that when I told him how important it was for what you're doing here tonight. I hope you realize the importance and the significance of what you're doing, because this country is we're on the precipice of a pretty dramatic change. And I'm not encouraged by any chance of what that might lead to. I am appalled at what we see in our Congress. To me, the United States of America is still the shining light on the hill. And we give hope to a lot of peoples and a lot of people around, a lot of nations around the world. And I think we have a responsibility to preserve that for those people and for our own people, and especially for our grandchildren and our children as we go forward. So there are guests, I'm trying to say, keep up what you're doing. I meant that. I think we have to really make sure that people understand when you're voting for socialism, what the real impact of that is. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge for some of our young people to understand that, I think. Why, I don't know, but we've seen socialism attempted around the world over the years, and it has not been successful. So I encourage all of our young people and us to help them understand what it means if you're going to give free health care, if you're going to do the Green New Deal and some of those things, the cost of that and who's going to pay the bill. And you know, I will share this with you, and if I'm going on too long, you stop me. You're the moderator.
No,
so you
go
can
ahead.
You can say quit, Jim. But you know, we've been involved in business. My wife started a home, and I started a home health care agency. We bought farm ground, and we've enjoyed all of that. And so I think it's just important that we preserve those kind of opportunities for our children and our grandkids, and make sure that we make the effort, all of us make the effort to let these young people understand what it means to be involved in a socialist situation.
Well, I actually have the answer to the next question. I was going to ask you what drove you back to public service, but I think we have that answer. So now I'm curious. In your time in Congress, what right now is probably the biggest issue that would be beneficial to the American people, and it's bipartisan, just something that would be benefit the economy and the country that is not moving because of the environment and culture right now in Washington, D.C.?
USMCA.
Explain what that...
United States, Mexico, Canadian arrangement that used to be NAFTA. We can't even bring that to the floor. It's been ratified by Mexico. Canada has certainly been a trading partner. It amounts to $30 billion a year to our economy. And you have to recognize that agriculture, of course, my ag background, that concerns me. And then you must remember that in that NAFTA trading arrangement between Mexico and Canada, a tariff-free zone and having that kind of free trade is just phenomenal. So we cannot bring that to the floor. And I'm concerned and frustrated that we have the power, that we've concentrated that power to the point that one person, the Speaker of the House, can determine whether or not we bring that bill to the floor. And that's a frustration. There's been, they just had a rally that ended from several 100,000 miles from the Farmers for Free Trade on the mall in Washington that terminated their effort to try and go around and educate the U.S. and the people about the benefits of the free trade. It really, let's see, 1994, 25 years ago, was the last time that trade arrangement was upgraded. And so we get into, how many things have happened in information technology and digital technology. So it upgrades that. It offers farmers, the dairy industry, as we traded with Canada, for example, they had created a Class 7 for dairy products. That may not impact a lot of you in this room, but nonetheless, by doing that, they were able to, from that class, be able to bring their products to the United States of America, and that was detrimental to our dairy industry. So I think you have to realize that any industry, I'm using agriculture because that's what I'm familiar with, but I'm sure there's people in this room that could share stories about other industries that are impacted. And so, for example, in Indiana, 29% of our GDP comes from manufacturing. And believe you me, we have tremendous tremendous capability to manufacture and talent and skills that we need to preserve for this country. And I know the Connecticut, the Constitution state, you're really involved in the financial aspects. But you know, if you're buying farm ground, or if you're expanding a business, or if you're in manufacturing, you have to have the ability to have access to capital. And that's extremely important. So you play a major role in how successful we are in this country. And I want to see the United States of America lead us in the information technology world, in the research world. I serve on the agricultural technology, or on agriculture committee, and I serve on the science, space, and technology committees, and both of which provide some interesting developments that are enticing to getting our young people involved. Agriculture, for example, I mean, I know what you think. Well, no, I don't know. But my gosh, the technology that we've incorporated into agriculture, we're enticing more and more young people to want to get involved in that industry. The STEM kind of graduates, you know, science, technology. And so that's important.
Well, I'm curious. You and I had a conversation earlier today.
Too far away? Do we use this?
Yeah, it's already on.
Can you hear me? Is that better? You want me to go back and repeat everything I said to this point? I didn't think so. You got most of it right.
So I'm curious. You and I had a conversation earlier today. Are there moderate Democrats left in Washington, D.C., or is AOC and that radical ideology kind of tearing the halls of Congress apart?
I think you have to keep focused on what's important to this country. And so certainly those high-profile issues grab a lot of, in fact, it sucks the wind out of our media sometimes. But I think you need to stay focused on what's important to this country. That's what I try to do when I think about the people from my district elected me to go there to vote for the things that were important to them. And so I try to isolate those high-profile issues and let that go by the wayside. I'm more interested in how successful our country is. By the way, J.R., I did learn one thing about your state that was interesting to me today. He tells me you taxed the Little League. Is that true? I mean,
It's true. We tax Little League.
Anyway, I almost told him that there wasn't any helping you people. I mean, I needed to go do something else. But anyway, I'm just kidding. I think we do have to be cognizant of where government's involvement in our lives. I'm a small government. I'm about like I am about speeches. The less is usually better. I think government ought to be working with our citizens to help them qualify for whatever they want to do. But then we ought to get out of the way. And I think that was kind of what you were suggesting to me today, Jar. So government ought to be, a limited government. We ought to protect our citizens, which brings up the immigration issue and what's going on our southern border. My military experience would say that anytime you moved into a new area, the first thing you did was establish a perimeter and determine who is and isn't coming out of that area so you could control it. And I think we need to do the same thing for our country. And did you thank you. Didn't you recognize a lot of the veterans in here? How many people are veterans? Hold up your hands if you're veterans. And so,
Quite a few.
But thank you for your service. But I recognize that there's other ways to serve your country in terms of supporting veterans and families. My wife was a tremendous support to me. And I know you had, even though I didn't ask how many, I am sure that almost every person in here is a family member that we either served or they were involved with the military service and protecting our country. And so I take my hat off to those folks.
Well, Congressman, I didn't know if you had a special message from Brian that I didn't know if you want to, Congressman Mast, if you wanted to talk a little bit about, for those who know, Congressman Mast was supposed to join us tonight, and he had a family emergency that he had to deal with. He had to fly out early this morning, but I know that you would want to kind of touch on what your mission is with Brian, Congressman Mast, and Congressman Crenshaw.
Absolutely. He had a family emergency and he couldn't be here, and he certainly regretted that. We hadn't been to the state or in Congress more than 3 days. That we had the picture that maybe some of you have seen, the 5 eyes, the five arms and 4 legs, and then but the final words on that was all American, and you're all Americans. And I think of our country as being all Americans. We're a country of immigrants. And so I think we need to capitalize on that and utilize that. And so back to your question, J.R., I think you were trying to get around to the fact that I'm hoping that bond for veterans, there was, 19 new ones in the new freshman class. That ends up with 96 in Congress altogether. Several of those are women, which is fantastic. The thing that I think is beneficial about that is there's a bond there that no one can destroy. I mean, we can have this, so hopefully that will lead to us having the opportunity. There's a for-country caucus. We talk about some of these bills and where we can get on common ground, regardless of what your political party is. We can find common ground, and hopefully that helps us move forward. Because as long as we're in this situation where we cannot make progress, it's not good for the country, and it's not good for our people. And for back to the USMCA, the fact that we can't move on that doesn't impact our members of Congress. Who that does impact is our citizens out here and our businesses that can't make plans. They have funds available to expand, but they can't make that kind of commitment until they're certain about where we're headed. And so that uncertainty is concerning to me. So I just think that, and you can maybe not like me for this. I hope you do. I think we just need to take that conservative, practical decision-making skills that you use in your business every day and that we use on the farm every day, and make sure that Washington utilizes that as well. And I think we'd be better off. So.
Well, I appreciate it, Congressman. And I truly appreciate the time that you spent with us and spent with me today. So I personally believe the more veterans that we have in positions of power like Congress and Senate, the better off the country will be, which is why, as we speak, you are all receiving an email and how to donate to your joint fundraising agreement with Congressman Crenshaw, Congressman Mast, and yourself. Obviously, it's important that we protect Congress in 2020, if not make gains in the House. So I really appreciate you joining me, and I hope anyone listening tonight will consider investing in protecting these congressional seats, because it's very important. I appreciate your time, Congressman.
Thank you. Would you allow me to say just one last thing? I said I love this country, and I love, we said the pledge to the flag. And just so to summarize between Dan Crenshaw and Brian Mast and I guess maybe I shouldn't be speaking for them totally, but you know what? If you're on the wrong side of my flag, you're on the wrong side of me. And I stand for this country. So I thank you.
Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.